Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to tonight's meeting of the Committee of Adjustments.
Is the mic not on?
I don't know. It is? Do you hear it? Good evening. Welcome to tonight's Committee of Adjustment meeting. This is the meeting to consider applications for minor variances and consents held under the authority of the Planning Act of Ontario. The role of the committee is to review the proposals that are before it, consider the evidence provided, and make a decision based on the 4 tests established by the Planning Act. In order to conduct an effective and efficient hearing, we have adopted the following process. Tonight's meeting will be live streamed and available for future viewing on the town's live stream page at oakville.ca/live. People attending this committee meeting are to be courteous and respectful to the members of the committee, town staff, and others in attendance. We ask that you maintain your cellular devices on silent or switched off at this time. All remarks and questions are to be directed to the chair. All persons wishing to address the committee are required to provide their name and address. A maximum of 5 minutes will be provided to all speakers. Any submissions beyond the 5 minutes will be at the discretion of the chair, and any materials presented to the committee for viewing will remain the property of this committee. Persons seeking a deferral or withdrawal of an application will be invited to do so at the onset of the meeting. If a request for a deferral is granted, it is the responsibility of the applicant to contact the Secretary-Treasurer regarding the scheduling of a new hearing date. At the request of the committee, the applicant may be asked to provide a brief presentation and answer any questions that may arise. If the applicant has any concerns with the recommendations and proposed conditions found within the staff report, this is the time to advise the committee. All persons who wish to support or oppose the application will then be given an opportunity to speak to the committee. In the interest of efficiency, we ask that groups sharing the same view are to select a spokesperson, and individual speakers who are asked not to cover the same points as those who had previously spoken. The applicant will then be given an opportunity to respond to comments made by interested parties and answer any additional questions from the committee. Discussions will then be closed and the matter taken into committee for a decision. Once the committee has made an oral decision, any person desiring a written copy must file with the Secretary-Treasurer a written request for notice of the decision. A green sheet is provided on the table at the back of the room for this purpose, and only those filing such a request will be given any subsequent notice of any appeal. Notice of the committee's decision will be mailed to the applicant and anyone who has filed a written request no later than 10 days following the decision for minor variances and 15 days for consent applications. If you do not agree with the committee's decision, you may appeal the decision to the local planning appeal tribunal. The last day to appeal will be noted on the decision. If no appeal is received within the prescribed time frame, the decision of the committee becomes final and binding, and the applicant and anyone who received a copy of the decision will then be notified by written correspondence. Thank you. We have no regrets this evening. Do we have any declaration of pecuniary interest? Mr. Talowski?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I'm going to declare a conflict on CAV A004. The applicant and my company have a business relationship.
Thank you, Mr. Talowski.
Pass this to him. He has to come back to me. Thanks.
Okay. At this time, I will take requests for deferral or withdrawal of applications. The earliest date that we have, as per the Secretary-Treasurer, is February the 18th. I will remind everyone that as our bylaw does say that we do take the requests for deferral and withdrawals at the onset of the meeting. So I'm saying it loud and clear now so that we don't start the meeting and then halfway through someone comes down and we go through the motions again. Hello, good evening.
Madam Chair.
How are you, Mr. Hicks?
Very good. William Hicks with Hicks Design Studios, seeking a deferral on CAV A003, 171 Wilson Street. It's a interesting project. We have full community support. Planning still has some small concerns. We would rather address those and come back with hopefully full support of everybody. So
171 Wilson?
yes.
Okay.
And 8th of February, we have a conditional offer on the property. If we could be on the 18th, then that will still meet our requirements on that. So.
Okay, and we do have all the supporting letters that were sent in from your neighbors as well on records, so
yes.
you know. Okay. Members, Mr. Hicks would like a referral to work further with planning. Can I have a recommendation? All those in support of a deferral? Okay. Your
you.
deferral has been granted. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other deferrals?
There's someone here for that one though.
Which one? Oh, I forgot to ask, sorry. Is there anyone here for 171 Wilson Street, a CAV A003 of 2020? I apologize, it is the first meeting of the new year. We're gonna kick it into gear soon. Anyone here for that application? Okay, no one, thank you. Good evening.
Good evening, Madam Chair.
Hello, Mr.
I'm here on agenda item 6D. My name is Cheeseman Russell, and I'm a solicitor for Melrose Investments, Inc. The applicant in this matter, we're requesting a deferral to the next available date. We have reviewed the planning staff report, and we have some concerns that we'd like to speak to the planning staff about. This is a very similar application to one that was previously before you about 6 or 7 months ago. And there's some discrepancies that we believe are in the planning report that we need to talk about, so we'd like the opportunity to do that before we come back.
Very well, thank you, Mr. Cheeseman. Is there anyone here in attendance for application CAV 004 of 2020 at 1435 Cornwall Road? I see none. Members, all those in support of a deferral? Okay, we have deferred your matter. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Anyone else? Okay, going once, going twice, no more deferrals. All right. First application on our agenda tonight is CAV 001 of 2020 at 265 Vance Drive. Good evening.
Hello.
Hello. Your name and address for the record, please?
Lindsay Bruce of SMPL Design Studio, address 97 James Street North in Hamilton.
Okay. Sorry, your name was, I didn't catch it.
That's okay. Lindsay Bruce.
Bruce.
Yeah.
Yes, Bruce, thank you. Who is here for application CAV 01 of 2020 at 265 Vance Drive? Okay, I see none. This is a front and rear yard addition to an existing dwelling.
Correct.
We have done our site visits and we are familiar with your application. Feel free to add anything that you'd like to add to the application, and then I'll ask the members if they have any questions for you.
Perfect. Yeah, I'll just add, we got the planning staff comments and see that they're in full support. The owner is also here as well, if there are any questions for the owner.
Okay.
And Kathy did go to the neighbors and get support from the neighbors as well. As you can see, there's nobody here contesting it. So we feel confident with the proposal, and that's it.
Okay, very well. Members, do you have any questions for Ms. Bruce at this time regarding this application or any items of clarification? I see none. So if you're satisfied with the comments from staff and the conditions that are set forth?
Yes.
We can take the matter into committee now.
Okay.
Okay. Who would like to move a motion? First motion of the new year. Mr. Hardcastle, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Having reviewed the submission materials, written staff report, and having undertaken a site visit, I am satisfied that the requested variances conform to the 4 tests of the Act, and I'll put forward a motion of approval, finding that the application conforms to the tests. The resolution should be subject to 2 conditions. The first being that the additions be built in general accordance with the site plan and elevation drawings dated November 26, 2019. And the second being that the approval expire within 2 years of the date of the decision if a permit has not been issued. I would note that there were no members of the public present to make deputations or written submissions with respect to this matter.
Very well. Thank you, Mr. Hardcastle. Is there a discussion on this recommendation? I see none. All those in support? Okay. Your application has been approved. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Application CAV 002 of 2020 at 2416 Ventura Drive. Good evening.
Good evening, Madam Chair. I'm Joris Kieran, Kieran Design in Oakville, 11 Bronte Road, Unit 31. I'm the agent for the applicant.
Good evening, Mr. Kieran. Who is here for application CAV 002 of 2020 at 2416 Ventura Drive? I see none. Thank you. This is a proposed new construction. Time is yours. You're a veteran in this.
I don't really have anything to add. As the committee knows, the planning Staff is fully supportive of the application. We did canvass the neighborhood to the extent possible with people that were home. If people weren't home, we put an information package in their mailbox. We didn't hear anything back, so it's a pretty straightforward application, so I'm ready to have it go to the committee.
Very well. Thank you, Mr. Kieran. Are there any questions of Mr. Kieran at this time? I see none. Okay, if you're satisfied, we will take the matter into committee. Go ahead, Mr. Flemington. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Having conducted my site visit and having reviewed the applicant's written submission as well as the town's written staff report, which I do note that the staff is in support of the application. Also, having taken into account the comments presented by the applicant this evening as well, noting that there were no questions or submissions from the public and that there were also no written objections or support from the public. I am prepared to make a motion to approve the application as applied for, finding that it meets the 4 tests under the Planning Act. And I would like to include the conditions that the dwelling be built in general accordance with the site plan and elevation drawings dated November 28, 2019. And also our standard condition that the approval expires 2 years from the date of the decision if a building permit has not been issued for the proposed construction.
Very well. Thank you, Mr. Flemington. Is there a discussion on this recommendation? I see none. All those in support? Okay, the application has been approved.
Thank
Thank you. Application CAV 005 of 2020 at 12 Birch Hill Lane. Good evening.
Hi, good evening, Madam Chair, committee members. My name is Glenn Wellings. I'm planning consultant for the owner applicant.
Good evening, Mr. Wellings. Allow me just to canvass the room, please. Who is here for application CAV 005 of 2020 at 12 Birch Hill Lane? Okay, I see none. Mr. Wellings, we are familiar with your application, and this is a new construction for interior side minor variance. You're supported by the Conservation Halton as well, correct?
Yeah, there's a permit in place from Conservation Halton.
Very well. If you have nothing further to add, we can take the matter into committee. Members, do you have any further questions or items of clarification of Mr. Wellings at this time? I see none. If you're satisfied with the
I am satisfied.
town's reports and conditions, we're ready to take the matter into committee.
Okay, thanks, Madam Chair.
Okay, very well. Go ahead, Ms. Murray. Thank you.
Madam Chair, having conducted my site visit, we reviewed the applicant's written submission as well as the town staff's written report, of which I note is in support of this application. Having also taken into account the comments presented by the applicant and the package this evening, I will note that there are no written or oral objections from the public at this time. I am satisfied that the submission, that the minor variance meets all 4 tests of the Planning Act, and I'm prepared to make a motion to approve the application for the variance following the subject conditions. Sorry, excuse me, I'm just getting over a cold. That the dwelling be constructed in general accordance with the site plan and elevations drawing dated December 4th, 2019, and that the approval expires 2 years from the date of the decision if a building permit has not been issued for the proposed construction.
Very well. Thank you, Ms. Murray. Is there a discussion on this recommendation? I see none. All those in support? Okay, the application has been approved. Thank you,
Thanks
Mr.
very
Wellings.
much.
The next item on our agenda is application CAV 006 2020 at 1933 Iron Oak. Am I pronouncing this right? Iron Oak, sorry, Way. Good evening.
Hello,
Good evening.
my name is Patrick Lucky, architect. I'm the agent for the property owners.
Okay, good evening, Mr. Lucky. Who is here for application CAV 006 of 2020 at 1933 Iron Oak Way? Okay, I see none. Go ahead, sir. We understand that this is for a new office development, and the variances that you're requesting are the balconies and permit surface parking in an area. The town is not in support of one of your variances, so if you'll take us through your application, and then we'll take it from there.
Sure. As you said, the variance for the balconies, the rear balconies, is supported by planning. The second variance for the separation between the parking stall and the structure of the building, we were requesting a 0.6 meter separation, whereas 1.8 meters is required. And planning was initially not supportive of that reduction. Subsequently, we have had some conversations with planning and have found some space, let's say, on the site to increase that 0.6 meter setback to 0.9 meters. Which conforms with one of the points in the planning report about separations from parking stalls and retaining walls. And my understanding is that planning is supportive of that 0.9 meter setback. So the
So
slight
you're
change.
amending your application?
Yes.
Okay. I need to hear from town staff. Mr. Hassan?
Yeah, through Madam Chair, I did discuss internally with staff that are reviewing the site plan application, and as per the comments, staff are supportive of the 0.9 meter setback, which is an increase from the 0.6 being proposed in the application.
Okay, and how is that going to be indicated in the drawings or as submitted? Does he have the set of drawings that will support that?
Yeah, through Madam Chair, I believe one of them is on the screen, and then the site plan shows it as well.
Okay, so he'll provide those to the Secretary Treasurer?
Yes, I have copies.
Okay, members, I'd like, yeah, go ahead. Yeah, are there any items of clarifications or questions of Mr. Lucky, other than waiting to see those drawings?
Do you want me to keep one up?
Sure, Ms. Murray, has, Mr. Hassan, Ms. Murray has a question for you.
I have a question for town staff. I'm assuming that the original setback of 1.8 meters from any building is for many reasons, of which safety is one of them. How would 0.9 as opposed to 1.8 be sufficient?
So through you, Madam Chair, you're absolutely right. The paramount, I guess, case is that pedestrian safety is paramount in this situation. I guess separation from the building facade being the columns in this situation, we feel that the additional foot would grant that a separation to prevent any contact between any vehicles and the pillars themselves. So that was the extent of the discussion that I had with internal staff based on the guidelines and regulations that we use to evaluate the new developments in this situation.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Mr. Tulowski, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Again, a question for staff. Even at the 0.9, it seems to contradict your staff report that suggests the overhangs on vehicles are greater than that.
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair, I believe the 1.14 and then the 1.34 is based on guidelines that staff use to evaluate, but based on the regulations that staff use. In this particular instance, it's the 0.9 meters to a retaining wall where we're taking that example from, and that's why we're supportive of the 0.9 in this situation.
So am I to understand that 0.9 is one of the acceptable guidelines that are in the bylaw or in the building or planning staff's regulatory instructions?
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair, it was actually in the urban design guidelines that I believe I was referenced for.
Okay. Are there any further questions of either planning or the applicant at this time? Go ahead, Mr. Tulowski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Supplemental for staff. Mr. Hassan, then you're now equating the safety risk of backing into a retaining wall to backing into a supporting column on a building. Is that correct?
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair, again, increasing it from 0.6 to the 0.9 is more acceptable to staff.
Or you said more acceptable. Is it acceptable or is it
Yeah,
more
yeah,
acceptable?
through you, Madam Chair, it is acceptable, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. I'm assuming in the drawing that you have closer to the building that that curbside is much higher than it what looks like right now?
It's a standard
Standard
barrier. It's a
curbside?
standard barrier curb, yes. Would
Okay.
range between 0.15 and 0.2 meters. It should be noted that we do have a separation between the cars and the entrances to the building, a covered area of 1.8 meters in addition to the 0.9 meters between the supporting columns and the parking space. So in terms of pedestrian safety, I don't think there's any question that we have sufficient space. The only question is whether the 0.9 meters is detrimental to the safety or structure of the building or the cars. And I think in my response to planning was that although the brick is part of the building, it's not the structure of the building, that there is steel structure supporting the second floor of the building, that the brick is a cladding. And any incidental damage to the brick wouldn't necessarily be structural damage to the safety of the building.
Okay. Any other questions? Ms. Murray, go ahead.
To the best of your knowledge, and you may or may not have this information, or the staff may or may not have this information, what kind of impact will that column withstand before there's structural damage?
Well,
was
without
down.
having any hard numbers, I mean, it's not the end of a driveway or a street. It's at the end of a parking stall. So, we're talking about, slow-moving vehicles, either parking forward or backing up, that the speeds would be minimal.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Any further questions before we take the matter into committee? I see none. Mr. Lucky, if you have nothing further to add, we can take the matter into committee.
Thank you.
The other question I have is, does town staff have any recommended conditions?
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair, as noted in the application, the comments for this application, since the application is being reviewed concurrently with a site plan application, if the committee decides to approve it, it would be approved based on the site plan and elevation drawings to the satisfaction of the Director of Planning Services, and then the standard 2-year conditions.
Okay. All right, who would like to move a motion?
Yeah, I pretty much got it.
Okay. Mr. Flemington, go ahead.
I might need some help here.
Okay. Yeah, she's got it.
Just with regards to, I thank the applicant for working with the town staff to revisit variance number 2. I'm going off of based what the staff's comments are, saying that the amended change from 0.6 meters to 0.9 meters is acceptable to the town staff. And you had also mentioned it's within the urban guidelines. And then the other thing is I'm going off the fact that it's still up for the site plan approval and to the satisfaction of the Director of Planning. So also noting that there is a further 1.8 meter setback from the building for pedestrians. So thank you for clarifying that. So based on that, I am going to move a motion that the application be approved as amended with the amended drawings that have been provided to us. Sorry, I don't see a date on there,
But we won't, it'll be the,
from the site plan?
Submitted
I
to
can
me.
read that.
Yeah, if you don't mind.
So, Brandon, so that the office development be built in general accordance with the site plan and elevation drawings to the satisfaction of the Director of Planning Services.
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair, that'd be correct, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, sorry, thank you. So that, noting that there were also no members of the public to speak against this application, as well as there was no written submissions submitted against the application. And there are our standard condition as well. So we did the drawings, but also that our standard condition with regards to the building permit. If a building permit has not been issued within 2 years from the date of the decision for the proposed construction, the approval expires 2 years from the date. Our standard condition. Sorry, I know that was a little
That's okay,
discombobulating, but
We've got it.
Yep.
yeah.
Okay, perfect. Is there a discussion on this recommendation? Mr. Talowski?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I'm not going to be supporting that motion. I can support variance 1. I cannot support variance on the parking setback. Chair, the bylaw specifically sets a different standard for retaining walls and buildings to ensure the vehicles don't impact the building. The variance does nothing to satisfy that concern that's in the bylaw. So equating a building to a retaining wall I cannot see as being in accordance with the zoning bylaw at all. So, Madam Chair, I can't support on that basis, and the fact that even though staff is now supporting it, their support remains inconsistent with their actual written staff report.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Talowski. Is there any further discussion on this recommendation? I see none. Okay, so all those in support of Mr. Flemington's motion to approve the amended application? Okay. All those against? Okay. Your application has been approved.
Thank you.
Okay, application CAV 007 of 2020 at 522 Third Line.
Good evening.
Good evening again, Mr. Kieran.
Joris Kieran, Kieran Design, agent for the applicant.
So unlike the previous application, this application has a little bit of a
Yes.
kickback from town staff. They're not in support of your driveway width. No, sorry. No, it's supposed to.
That's correct. They're not supporting variance number 1 for the widened driveway, which
Yes.
was not for an entirely widened driveway, but only to accommodate a hammerhead feature to facilitate, vehicle turning around to exit in a forward motion onto Third Line. Staff did not support that variance. We found out about it, late last week. So after speaking with my client, he's decided to withdraw that particular variance. So, and I've had my staff draw up a revised drawing. If that's useful to the committee, I can submit that. Not sure what the preferred way to handle this is, but I have that, which is basically showing a compliant version of the driveway.
Have staff seen this?
I've spoken to Mr. Hassan about it, but he hasn't seen that. And I, yeah.
Okay, so if you can pass those drawings to us?
Sorry?
Do you have 5 copies, 6 copies there?
I have 1 copy.
Oh,
Like that.
But I can have you, I can bring you more tomorrow.
It is on the
No,
overhead.
it's for the committee members.
No.
Oh, okay.
Maybe we can just zoom in to it on,
Oh, sure, yeah. I'm not sure how the new system works.
I just need to
Oh,
get
you
their
need-
attention. Can we have a zoom in, please? It's not working? Okay, thank you.
I actually have the other drawing as well. I'm sure you have the original drawing in front of you.
Yes, we
but-
have that one.
So you can see the original drawing has a deeper turnaround area.
Yeah.
Which is a total cumulative width of 11 meters.
Oh,
where-
okay, I see.
Whereas this is 9 meters total, which is compliant. So staff had pointed out that they didn't think that extra depth was necessary to facilitate a turnaround. So, you know, I think it'd be better to have the extra depth, but I think they're right in the sense that you could do the turnaround with that. So we're prepared to accept that.
Okay. And I know, we drive down Third Line all the time. It's a busy street, so I appreciate having that facility. I never canvassed, did I, the room for anyone who's in attendance for application CAV 007-2020 at 522 Third Line. Is there anyone here for it? Are you neighbors in support or in opposition?
I'm 528, I'm neighbor to the north.
Oh, yes, okay. You're 528, neighbor to the north. Are you here in support or in opposition, sir?
A couple of questions, I'm new to this process.
Oh, okay, very well. So, are there any questions of Mr. Kieran at this time? Okay, there aren't any. We'll invite you to address the committee, and you can ask all your questions, and we'll try and get you all the answers that you need. Good evening, and I apologize. It's
That's
kind
okay,
of.
this is my first time here, and we live next door, 528.
Can I have your name and address first?
I'm sorry, Jeffrey Waugh, W-A-U-G-H.
W-A-G-H.
A-U-G-H.
A-U-G-H, Waugh, okay.
And we live 528 Third Line, right next door. Our concern is, actually, Mr. Kieran was making a comment about the turnaround. It's a shared driveway, it's a double driveway. We've always been in good communication with our neighbor, we always share. We both do the three-point turn, because yes, Third Line is busy. It's best to go nose out, so that is not a problem with that. We are concerned about the height. It's going to shut down our sunlight. Usually we get sunshine from 10 a.m. Now, with the height of the building, it's going to be about probably till 2.
Well, we don't have a height variance before us, so they are in compliance with the height requirement, so there's nothing there that we can do.
Okay. Our other concern was we have spent quite a bit of money building a patio. As they excavate, if any damage is done to our patio, will there be any, in terms of variance? I don't think this really applies to this.
I don't think they need a variance for any of that, but Mr. Kieran will be happy, I'm sure, to answer those concerns and
outside.
questions. No, I mean, we'll get him to address that. Any other concerns?
No, we understand the neighborhood is changing.
Okay, very
Hopefully
well.
for the better.
Okay. The way the process works is you get your say,
Yes?
and then we invite Mr. Kieran back, and he gets his say, but then it's final, there is no rebuttal. So I invite you to make all your comments now, and if is that your wife? If you would like to address the committee, you're more than welcome to, but you need to come and address the committee with your name and address, so that we have everything on record, and then we'll take the matter into committee.
Okay, there is no challenge with the variances then?
There's nothing further that you'd like to add?
No.
Okay.
I'll deal with Mr. Kieran.
Okay, Mr. Kieran. Oh, are you, I'm confused. Would you like to address the committee?
Yes, I actually have a question for Mr. Kieran.
Okay, well then you, please come down, state your name and address. The process is as such, and then we'll be happy to answer all your questions.
So I am backing out onto that property. I'm at 525 Swan Drive. My name is Corinne Barnard.
You are 525 Swan.
And so actually, my question is on the...
Sorry, can you state your name again?
Corinne, C-O-R-I-N-N-E.
Corinne, Miss Corinne.
And last name?
Swan, right? No,
Swan Drive.
You are on Swan Drive, but what is your last name?
Barnard, B-A-R-N-A-R-D.
Thank you.
Okay, so you're backing onto this property.
Yes.
Yes.
Most of my property will be backing out onto this.
Yes, I
or
see that.
We'll be back, yeah, we will back into each other. So mine is on, actually, the second one in terms of the increase of the residential
Floor area,
area.
okay.
In terms of the impact that that may have in terms of how far back this new home will be to my property.
There's no rear yard variance, so they're within they do comply. The house footprint is a little bit bigger than the existing house right now, but they're still within their rights in terms of, yeah, and building, and they have a right to build 2 stories. As you well
Understand
know,
that.
it's inevitable that these small bungalows are going to be turned into
Right.
bigger homes for.
Yep.
So what is the other concern that
I
you
was
have?
just how close it was
Okay,
actually
so we'll
going
get
to be coming
Mr.
out.
Kieran to answer that concern. What else?
That's all I have.
That's all you have. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you very much, Ms. Bernard. Mr. Kieran. So Mr. Wall has a concern with regard to his patio, and Ms. Bernard has a concern with regard to how far back the house's footprint is going to be close to her house.
Okay. We have no Zoom, right?
Nope, unfortunately.
I also heard the first comment was regarding the driveway, which may not have been a concern, but I just wanted to clarify that. You know, this is currently a shared driveway or a connected driveway, and that driveway is going to be separated, so there'll be a 4-foot separation now between the new driveway and the neighbor's existing driveway, so that won't have any effect on them. The patio, I do have a patio here on the drawing. I'm assuming that's the patio that's being referred to. As is standard, and as the committee knows, there's a 4-foot side yard setback, which we're complying to. But then at the location where the patio is occurring, we have an additional, I don't have a dimension on it, but it appears to be about an additional 5 feet of a setback to the proposed dwelling. So we're probably looking at about a 9-foot setback from that property line at that point. And the patio appears to be about 2 feet in from the property line. So there would not be any disturbance anticipated or, you know, even settling or anything, because the excavation will be far enough away from the property line to not affect that patio.
Okay.
Would be my comment on that. And as far as the rear yard setback and you know, the proximity to the rear yard, so the setback that's required is 7.5 meters, and we are exceeding that. We have 9.2 meters to the closest point, which is actually a covered porch. So that is an open 1-story component of the house. The full 2-story part of the house is back even further. Roughly speaking, 33 feet, I would say, would be from the property line to the house itself. So well within and exceeding the minimum requirements for setback. Also, the house is not at its full width at the back, so that would further reduce the impact to the rear. And to the neighbor at the back of the property. We've stepped the house in, again, about 5 feet on this side and on the north side, and then another 5 feet or so on the south side. So the house is also a bit narrower.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions of Mr. Kieran at this time? Mr. Talowski?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Karen, we can't see it from here. Is there a date on your revised site plan?
Yes, so this new site plan, which I'm prepared to submit, is dated today for that purpose. So it can be distinguished that way as well.
Anytime we have new drawings, it's really helpful if you have copies for the entire committee.
Yes, no problem. I'll remember that for next time.
Even if it is a small, minor change, it just helps, because we're not always sure how the electronic system is going to work. Any other items of clarification or questions? Okay, are we prepared to make a motion? If you have nothing further to add, Mr. Keane, we'll take the matter into committee. Okay, I see Mr. Talowski motioning.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I'm prepared to move approval of the revised application, which eliminates variance number 1. With that, Madam Chair, I find it meets the 4 tests of the Planning Act. I will note that 2 members of the community came out today, and I'd just like to speak to that. I'm satisfied that the stepping of the walls in the building and the numerous slope grooves that are effective in mitigating the impact of the larger building. Satisfied that the rear yard is minimum of 9 meters when it's required to be 7.5. And with respect to the neighbor to the north, Madam Chair, I think the separation of the driveways and providing a green space in between is a positive, and I'm satisfied that with a side yard setback over double the minimum, that there shouldn't be any impact to the neighbor's patio. Having said that, Madam Chair, I'd move approval of the revised application, making it subject to 2 conditions: that development proceed in general accordance with the revised site plan dated January 14th, 2020, and the elevations dated December 12th, 2019, and that the variance expire for building permit has not issued within 2 years.
Very well, thank you, Mr. Talowski. Is there a discussion on this recommendation? I see none. All those in support? Okay, the application has been approved.
Okay, thank you. So I'm not leaving this site plan then?
You are.
Yeah, okay. There it is.
You're gonna need to email it to her either way.
Yeah, I will.
Okay.
So, yeah, I'll leave that one there.
Okay.
And then,
All right, application CAV 008 of 2020 at 1257 Lakeshore Road West. Good evening.
Good evening, Madam Chair, member of the committee audience. My name is Raid Rawi from Professional Floor Plans, 5147 Preservation Circle, Mississauga, Ontario. I'm the agent and designer.
Thank you, Mr. Rawi. Who is here for application CAV 008 of 2020 at 1257 Lakeshore Road West? Good evening, sir. You are here in support or in opposition? He's in opposition. So he will be addressing the committee.
he's going to try his best.
Okay, you can facilitate for him if you so choose. It's okay.
Facilitate, you mean like speak for him?
As you're doing right now, exactly.
Yeah, sure. I'll help him along.
Okay. All right. So, Mr. Rawi, for the benefit of your neighbor, we're going to listen to your presentation for this new development.
Yep.
And if you take us through all the variances, and then your neighbor will address the committee.
Basically, we have, let me open this. I was not expecting anybody to come. Okay. So we have a total of 4 variances. And these variances are mainly technical, and we discussed this long time with the planning staff to achieve a proper minor variance for this house. Unfortunately, I didn't print the site plan, but it's with the committee. The shape of the site is a little bit oriented, and this triggered most of the variances. So first, the first variance is the rear yard setback. It's because we are having a stair going to the basement, and because of the orientation of the lot line, we had to encroach a little bit in the side rear yard. This is all below grade, so nothing above grade, only maybe the railing, so it will not affect anybody from either side. Oh, thank you. So this is the site plan again. So this is for the site. You can see the rear yard setback for the house itself is well within the requirements, even exceeding the requirements. But because of this stair, the only encroachment is for the stair setback. We talked with the planning department many times. Our plan was to rotate the house in the parallel to the property line, but the neighbor, planning looked at the neighbors and the effect of doing this on the neighbors and proposed that we keep the house in this shape. And this is why we can see two variances on the side yard, just in a very small locations, only on the tip of these two corners only. Otherwise, we are much beyond. We have lots of setback, except for these two small points, and this happened in order to keep the house shape properly. The main point that we discussed with the planning and the zoning staff they help us with is regarding the floor area ratio. Actually, what is allowed is 29% for this lot size, and we are actually utilizing 29.3%. However, because of the zoning bylaw definitions of the shape or the height above the garage and the height for this type of French roof, which the client has no other preference, you can see the purple area here. It's all calculated as part of the floor area ratio, while it's not usable area. It's part only of the featured facade. So we reached this 34%, which is not actual floor area ratio, but it's due to the zoning bylaw definition of high roof. The last and small one is only for the shape of the porch, that the eaves in the front shape are exceeding 2 feet more than what is allowed, because the zoning bylaw asks for a maximum of 0.6 meter or 1 feet 11 inches from the roof or the wall line. In this case, we are a little bit exceeding, but I don't think this would affect anything. It's all for the shape of the front elevation. So these are the variances. I would like to add to that as well. We looked carefully into not affecting the trees of the site or the town or the neighbors, and even the trees marked here in red by the arborist. It's located on the neighbor properties because he found them dead, and as a duty to report, he reported this. Usually during the site plan approval, if the neighbor doesn't want to remove them, he's free to do so, but we'll inform them just for sake of courtesy that they have some dead trees. There's only one tree to be removed in our application. Everything else will be protected. Thank you. I'm ready for any questions.
Very well. Thank you, Mr. Rawi. Are there any questions at this time or items of clarification? I see none. Okay. Sir, you're welcome to address the committee if you have further questions or items of clarification.
You have to tell them your name and your address.
Yeah,
And you can pull the mic down towards him.
I can't hear.
Okay, it's okay. Go ahead. Tell them your name and your address.
Yeah, my name is Fritz Boss, B-O-S-S-E. I live on 139 Sandbell Drive. And my neighbor, he's just corner Lakeshore. My neighbor from the Lakeshore, he's coming in my backyard and he wants to enlarge his property. She said, I got his property.
What was his address again?
What's your address? Sandwell?
139 Sandwell Drive. Actually, mine was Lakeshore. I changed it for business purpose.
Okay. Okay. So you're right next door to him?
Yeah, he's right next door.
Okay. So what are your concerns, sir? Is there someone coming into your property? I misunderstood.
Yeah, so he's actually, his main concern is, he's under the impression that his property is actually, it's not where the fence is at. So he thinks it's larger, and he feels like, the neighbors that are gonna be building are gonna be encroaching onto his property, or are gonna be taking over his property.
Okay, well, anytime there's a building application, they survey the property lines, and I'm sure Mr. Raya will come and clarify that. But we have no encroachment on either properties from the left or the right. The only variance that's being requested that you need to explain are the corners that Mr. Rawi identified, where the property is going to be a little closer to the property line, but certainly not over the property
Yeah.
line.
Okay, but Fritz is under, like, he thinks his property is actually,
I know.
Bigger than it's
he
anything.
is, like, the, sort of survey that was shown,
Yes?
he feels like is incorrect.
Okay, well, as a committee, we have no way of dealing with that matter. Like,
Yeah.
we are only charged with dealing with the matter at hand, which are the variances before us. If he has any concerns with respect to the survey and its correctness, he would have to see town staff and the building department and planning, and that's where he would be able to get all the
He
information.
tried that, but they didn't have a survey of his property.
Okay, I'm at a loss. Mr. Hassan, do you want to chime in?
Through you, Madam Chair, the site plan submitted with the application isn't an actual survey, to my understanding, but you're correct. Through the building permit process, this property is zoned, what's the property zone? RL1-0, so it's within the Suffolk zone and would be subject to a development engineering site plan approval. So through that process, a survey would be required to delineate the bounds of the land before any works are completed on site.
Okay, very well. So that's great. The fact that they have to submit to a development engineering site plan process will make sure that the survey is completed and it shows the boundaries of either properties correctly. So he'll be able to have those answers. But we'll invite Mr. Rawi to comment further. Are there any other concerns that he has with respect to the development other than that?
I think if he were to get a survey completed himself, would he be able to compare it with the survey that the builder is going to have?
I'm sure, why not? I mean, I'm not a specialty, yeah, it's outside of my scope and this committee's scope.
okay.
But like I said, like, all these questions can be answered by the planning department.
Okay.
Mr.,
Okay, so,
not right now, but not the survey, but like, yeah, in the building department.
right, okay.
Can you explain that to him?
So they don't have an official survey completed yet? They still have to have an official survey completed?
But the building will not proceed unless that's completed according to that process and everything is legitimate.
Okay, and they're not going to build unless that survey is legitimate, like the city approves the survey that they're going to be that they receive.
The surveyor does the survey,
Yeah,
but it has to be
survey.
submitted as part of the process, which is the development engineering site plan process that Mr. Hassan just said that they are subject to for this development. So it will be looked at and it will be approved.
Okay, okay. So, yeah, they can't really do anything in regards to the property line.
Well, he wants to create one.
I need you to explain to Mr. Sorry, I wrote them. Mr. Boss,
Yeah.
that this is all on record. So this is well documented. It's all on record. And it's not like he's going to leave the meeting and something else is going to happen. All the points that we're making here are well documented. when this process is finalized, he'll be able to look at the survey. You just have to stay in contact with the right people within the town. It's just unfortunate that we can't give you those answers right now.
Okay, Fritz, so they're gonna work on the property line.
Yeah.
But do you have a concern with the distance that they want to put the house from the proposed property line?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so you have to let them know that you don't, so you have to let them know that you don't want that point that close to the property line, if that's a concern for you.
Yeah.
Okay, so you have to tell them. So is that, do you guys understand what we're
We
getting
understand,
at?
yes, I understand. He doesn't
Yeah.
like the fact that
It's gonna be that close.
at that
Yes.
point. And that's noted. We'll have Mr. Rawi comment on that. Town staff, you've heard the explanation. Did you explain it to him? Did you, perhaps you can explain to him the presentation that Mr. Rawi gave us, that the town asked the builder to maintain the home in
Can you see that he put
That's
it?
right.
in the same place versus rotating it. So that's why those 2 points are necessary in terms of being close to, and that's the variance that they've applied for.
Right.
So you just need to explain that to him, and then we'll take matters into committee.
Did you
We've
mention
noted
the
his
other?
Yeah, so Fritz,
opposition.
The reason the points are close to your property is because of the orientation of the house. The house isn't gonna go on an angle based on the property line. It's gonna go basically parallel to the road. So it's gonna be
And from
square
what
to
I
the
see
road.
here, there's a
Well, it
huge
goes
distance
both
between
ways.
his
Yeah.
property.
And on the side.
Yeah. So it's actually better. It's actually I think it's not a bad thing that it's
Okay.
just the 1 point. It would be actually against you if it was running along the property line.
Perhaps before you leave, you can get some information from Mr. Hassan, and then you can give it to him in order to guide him as to how these questions can be answered.
Well, we know that he is on my property.
Yeah, okay. You have to get a survey done, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And how, I have a question. Can I ask a question? Oh, wait.
We
maybe
don't
this
have
is
your
for the
name and
city.
address on the record.
Okay,
But
that's
it's
okay
it's
then.
fine.
I'm okay, we'll ask the city. But I'm just curious, how would the city know if the city doesn't have any documents on his property? Like what the property line is? How would they know that the surveyor has the correct? How's the surveyor gonna find out that information?
Well, that's their job. They're professionals. They go in, they survey the land, they look at, and then the town will look at.
Okay, because that's Fritz's main concern.
So we have planners on our committee that maybe can weigh in on that.
The province of Ontario maintains a property database through the Land Registry Office. And, you know, there's a fairly lengthy process associated with preparing a survey, but ultimately the province of Ontario maintains a property database based upon the individual property PINs, the individual property ownerships. So they do keep some of that record, and some of that information may be available through the Land Registry Office. Historic surveys and things like that may have been previously registered on title for your individual property. I might suggest also, while I'm speaking, you may want to consult with a lawyer if you're seeking to understand what your property ownership is, as well as a surveyor.
Okay.
We hope we've provided you with enough information, and you can continue to dig further, but in terms of the matters within our purview is really the variances that are before us, and
Right.
that's all we can.
Okay, so your main concern, they can't really solve your issue with your concern, Fritz? It's just a variance.
Not here. There's a
here.
solution for it.
Yeah,
You just have to
no,
go through the
not
right
here.
venue. It's
They
just not
can't
under
do
our
it
purview.
here, But perhaps if you go to City Hall and they might be able to do something. And they're suggesting you get a survey done, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So
If you're staying till the end of the meeting, I'm sure Mr. Hassan will give you his, yeah, okay, he has his card already out,
Okay.
and
Great.
you can feel free to call. Staff is always very kind and ready to help, so you'll have your questions answered without a doubt. It's just a matter of getting them from the right individuals,
Right, appreciate it.
okay?
Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
That's
So
it.
now we'll invite Mr. Rawi to this,
Okay, Fritz,
Okay,
you're
thank
finished
you.
now.
you're welcome, sir.
Thank you, and I appreciate neighbor
So
questions.
you've heard the concerns, right?
Yes,
So
yes, yeah. First, we are not only did the survey, we actually did even the site grading, because we wanted to know how many steps we need for the stair in the rear yard. And because of the topography, our registered surveyor did the topographic survey and the boundary survey, plus he did the site grading and servicing plan for us. So it's already ready, so, because we needed to know how many steps in the rear yard because of the steps. So basically, I'm not sure if he looking maybe the fence or something like that, but we have a legal survey by a registered Ontario land surveyor, and we are willing to share it with the client if he has the email. And
perhaps you can do that afterwards, Mr. Rawi, to.
yes, we will do for sure.
Okay.
I would recommend for him to try to find it through Protect Your Boundaries or something, a cheaper version of the survey. But as far as we are concerned, we checked our land with the town records, with the area in the registered town, and with the surveyor, and we had no concerns whatsoever in this land. And all the records match and measured compared to the previous records are all matching. So we haven't felt that there is any issue with this property.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
Are there any questions of Mr. Rawi? Mr. Flemington, go ahead, sir.
Madam Chair, can you just, with the drawing again, explain to Mr. Boss his concern about the variance on where it's closest to his property? So that's illustrated well on that diagram, but if you could just show him what the impact would be if the house was angled, so that.
which one is his property?
The one with
to
the
the
red
left.
corner, the one with the circle,
one,
yeah,
yeah,
that's one.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Would it be easier if Mr. Boss came up beside?
Yeah.
And he could show him?
Yeah,
Yeah.
just bring him up, yeah.
Just so it might be easier, because he, as opposed to looking up to the screen, I'm not sure how much he can see.
Yeah.
Thank you. It's very helpful.
So this is your house,
Yeah.
and this is our house. We rotated the house, instead of this, they rotated like that to be parallel to the street. So there is this far away, everywhere far away, except this small piece. Only this small piece. And this all far away. It's all far away.
What is it, Lakeshore and this tip here? Central Drive?
I beg your pardon?
Where's Central Drive?
This is your,
Sandwell is here, Fritz.
here.
This is Lakeshore over here.
Oh,
You
So,
are far.
so this is.
well,
your-
I'm here and there,
No,
so,
so,
You're looking, maybe,
no, that's the back, that's the back. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's okay.
couldn't be here.
So,
and here.
so Fritz, this is your property here? And they're suggesting that it's like where the fence line
Yeah.
is, right?
this property has a Lakeshore address
Yes,
when I bought it.
yeah.
No, he's talking about his
Oh, yeah,
property.
okay.
That is property, and since I created a nursery school, it was Central Nursery School. So I got away from the name Lakeshore, and I called that address instead the original one. That's what happened. And so my lot is big this way and that way.
Can you just point out to Mr. Bose where his property line is, and then just show him that small
Yeah,
corner.
According to the drawing,
Yeah,
that, so they're basing it on this property line,
on that
right?
one.
Not, and they're just saying that this is where the house is gonna be, the setback.
Yeah,
Is that one little corner over
But
there?
only for that small portion. Everything else is a much bigger setback and well within the bylaw requirements.
Yeah.
Sie wissen doch, dass es,
He understands that.
Yeah.
It's just,
He's just concerned about his property line.
Because he's,
Okay.
he's under the impression that the angle is not supposed to be in
well,
that.
they come to the
Okay,
fence.
well,
and they
Mr.
say,
If you
"I
can
got,
explain to him that Mr. Rawi is going to show him
got
the survey that they have, and then he can double check it on his own through another surveyor
that's a long
Right.
line,
and
that-
through another legal entity, as Mr. Rawi indicated,
Okay,
and then that will put his mind at ease. We just
that's
can't
what
do
it
it
is.
here,
right,
okay?
okay.
So now we have to take the matter into committee in order for us to make a decision about the variances, but we've heard his concerns. We've gotten an answer from the developer, and now it's up to us to decide
On the variance.
on the variances, not on anything
On
else.
the variances, yeah. Okay. So they're
And
gonna-
if the dispute with, I don't know, from my point of view, if there's a
It is
dispute
really-
on the property line, and then, you can prove otherwise, the development will not proceed because it's bound by that development process, that
Right.
it has to be approved that way. So
Okay.
that should put his mind at ease as
Fair
well.
enough, yeah. So they're gonna make a judgment based on
Well,
what he has?
He already comes in my backyard and poisons the trees. He said, they're his and they gotta go. And he's taken all the branches off and everything. And he doesn't have any papers that he can do that. So why can't he wait until we straighten this out?
The trees that are on Mr. Bose's side, Mr. Rawi indicated that none of them were touched or going to be touched. The only ones are actually from the other side, the neighbor to the west, the orange trees.
Nobody
Mr.
is
Rawi, can
touching
you
the
put your thing up again for the trees?
These are your trees?
Those are his trees. yeah.
Nobody is touching.
Yeah, there's no orange
Nobody is
indication. That's what his can you lift it up a little so that it's in, yeah, there we go. So those trees, all the N numbers
the part
from 16 to,
between-
yeah.
This, or that,
No, that's not his side.
Your property
No,
is,
yeah,
Yeah. Fritz, so based on the fence line,
yeah.
right, they're saying that they're not touching your trees, right?
Yeah, that's,
I know you say otherwise, but it's his word against
the
yours. right?
trees are dying, so, and I went there and I picked up some yellow implants. They put something in the ground and I ripped it out. And that is to poison the tree, and then he drops all the leaves. And that's what they did. They poisoned it. Never asked me.
I'm sorry, this is really not within our,
Yeah, I know that. I know
I
that.
apologize. I wish I could do something.
Yeah.
We're going by what is being presented before us, and any disputes between neighbors, according to our bylaw, any disputes between neighbors, whether it's property line or trees or protection, they have to go through the proper channel, and it's not us. I apologize.
Yeah, okay.
He heard you, yeah.
Okay,
He understands.
okay.
Thank you.
You're very welcome, sir.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
I just want to add one thing. I mean,
These are accusations that you are the only person who can answer them, so if you have something to say, you can comment on it right now, because all of this is on record.
Right. I mean, my client, I know clearly my client. My client is a very well-known person in the market. He owns a New Life Fertility Center all around Ontario, and he's a reputable person, reputable family. They are well-known, and they are committee people. They would never do something like that or never think of doing anything to harm a neighbor or do anything to the environment or trees. They are my clients for a long time, and I know them. They are sincere and good people, and I don't accept anything hurting them by any means.
Okay, I suggest that after the proceedings, that you talk to the neighbor and figure things out
Right.
so that things can continue to be amicable.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Hardcastle, you have a question. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you. You had shown map, the schedule there with the purple area yet?
Yes.
Can you push, yeah. Do you know the amount of area that amounts to in terms of the square footage addition? Like what it contributes to the residential floor area?
The total?
Yep. What percentage of that? What?
I mean, it shows here in the application that
So there's 485 square meter, 485.81 square meters of residential floor area ratio. Of that number, what amount is the area in purple?
yeah, the amount is the difference between 34.14 minus 29.3. And I think it's in there in the planning report.
Is it? Okay, thank you.
I'm sure that they did the evaluation correctly. I'm sorry, I didn't print it, but I can find it for you now.
Uh, 48.15 square meters of the space above the garage is counted as
Okay,
floor area.
thank you,
Yeah,
thank you.
I'm sorry for not having the numbers. I used to teach math, but now I'm becoming a wrong person.
So it's about half of the differential.
No, actually, it's most of it. We are only 29.3% of usable floor area ratio.
No, but the additional is 73.14 square feet. That's what Mr. Hardcastle is alluding to. So 48 of that is above the garage. Is there anywhere else?
No, yeah, there is above the main floor, half over the garage, and the other on the other side. So actually, we are most of the variation goes to the shape of the French roof, because according to zoning bylaw, if the wall is more than 1.8 meter in height, the whole area will be calculated. And
Okay.
Also in the garage as well.
Yeah, the staff report advises that the actual usable floor area is 416.94. I missed that, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any further questions or items of clarification? Okay. If we're ready, we can
Yes,
take the
we're
matter
ready.
into committee. Okay. Go ahead, Ms. Murray. Thank you.
Madam Chair, having conducted my site visit, reviewed the applicant's written submission, as well as the town's written staff report, which I note that the staff is in support of. Having also taken into account the comments presented by the applicant this evening, and noting that there were questions, concerns, and some oral objections against the variance by Mr. Voss?
Boss, yeah.
Voss. I remain satisfied, based on the staff report and again by the presentation, that the minor variance application meets all four tests of the Planning Act, notwithstanding the questions that Mr. Boss has and that we believe can be answered at a later date and working in conjunction with the developer. So I'm prepared to make a motion to approve the application for the variance, subject to the following conditions: that the dwelling be built in general accordance with the submitted site plan and the elevation drawings dated December 11th, and that the approval expires 2 years from the date of the decision if a building permit has not been issued.
Very well. Thank you, Ms. Murray. Is there a discussion on this recommendation? I see none. All those in support? Okay, the application has been approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, The last application of the evening is application CAV 009 of 2020 at 2454 Blue Holly Crescent. Good evening.
Good evening. I'm Vivek Gupta. I'm agent for the homeowner.
Good evening, Mr. Gupta. Who is here for application CAV 009 of 2020 at 2454 Blue Holly Crescent? Are you here in opposition or in support? Oh, you're the homeowners. Okay, thank you. Anyone else? No, I don't see anyone. Okay, Mr. Gupta, your application is requesting a minimum rear yard variance, but it has not been supported by town staff. So the fact that you stayed till the end of the meeting means that you do want to proceed as it has been submitted. So you need to take us through your application and explain to us your thought process, and then we will take the matter into committee.
Right. So there are two things. One is that this is a very exclusive sunroom which is being built in Canada for various houses by me. I have done the building permits for various properties and various sunrooms. They actually turns the whole locality and the neighborhood look better. So the variance is for the lower backyard area, and I assume that that should not be a problem, because lots of cities and lots of places it has been allowed, since it makes the backyard look better, and actually homeowners, they enjoy their backyard better from the sunroom.
I don't think the town disputes the aesthetics of the sunroom. I think what is in dispute here is the fact that it is on the second floor and that there is a lookout onto the neighbors, so there is a negative impact. So I think those are the things you need to address.
Right.
Like,
So, yes. So
we all
I
love
can-
sunrooms, but that's not the issue.
Right. I can come to that point. That is very easy to be resolved, we can put some screens and it can be resolved, the privacy issue. Like big houses, they have windows all over the second floor, and they have to have screens for privacy. So we provide screens for privacy. We do that in lots of sunrooms on second floor. If that is a solution required for privacy. And on top of that, some large trees are already there on the property line, which actually gives privacy. And it was one of my discussion with the homeowner, and he has agreed to put more trees and like higher trees if that makes the neighborhood look better and makes the privacy better, and if committee agrees with that.
Are there any questions of Mr. Gupta while I wrap my mind around things? Go ahead, sir. Mr. Tulowski, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. There's nobody in the audience here objecting, but have you or the owner had an opportunity to speak to the neighbors with respect to this proposal?
Yes, sir. Homeowner has spoken to the neighbors, and he has suggested them the screen options, and they seems to be fine. And the reason probably they didn't show up, that they probably are thinking that we are putting the screens. So if they will have any other objection, we are very happy to discuss with them and resolve it out. Like I said, that I'm ready to put 2 more big cedar trees, which will give privacy and beauty both, if the neighbor wants.
So you said that you will put up trees and screens. If we work that into, I'm not saying that we will, I'm just saying as a discussion point, if we work that into the conditions to make sure that those things are done, how would your client feel about that?
Well, with your permission, may I call my client and get the clarification right over here? The homeowner is over here, and I can, I certainly think that.
But we've
you
put
think that it will be
screens
fine
in,
for the tree and screens both?
If they don't do it, what are you
Yeah.
gonna do?
but we've put screens before in our,
And they're not enforceable.
yeah,
It's not on title.
okay.
So if someone moves in, the next person rips out the screen, there's no way of enforcing that.
Mr. Hassan, we have in the past put some wording into the conditions that enforces the development of, and this is not as easy as, you know, ripping out a tree as the Secretary indicated, but with the sunroom, it can be like frosted glass or something to provide for privacy where the town is concerned. Would you be amenable to some sort of a condition like that?
Through you, Madam Chair, I'd have to take it back to internal staff to discuss that, just because this property is not zoned with a suffix, so there's no other process aside from this public process to deal with those items of concern in terms of impacts. So there's nothing to tie it to. There's no development engineering site plan approval or site plan approval to tie drawings to register on title.
Oh, okay. Thank you for that clarification. I'll leave it to the members of the committee to have a discussion and decide where we go from there. Are there any items of clarification or questions at this time before we take the matter into committee? Okay, I see none. Mr. Gupta, if you're satisfied with your presentation, you have nothing further to add. We've heard from town staff. We have to take the matter into committee and decide as a body as to the merits of the application, if you're satisfied. If not, please feel free to take the time to tell us before we do take the matter into committee. You have another minute or two.
Can I discuss this for a brief minute with my client? He is over here, that everything is okay and we all are in the
Well,
same.
let's see what let's see what the committee decides first. I don't think it's, as planning just indicated, it's not something that is enforceable because it's a different suffix and the bylaws that apply to it are different. But we'll see where it goes. I mean, he's right here. We can ask him. It's not a problem.
Would you like to?
And there's only him and it's fine.
Yeah, so he seems to be agreed with that.
That's fine. Any questions, or are we ready to move into committee and have a discussion? Yes, go ahead. Who's ready? Mr. Hardcastle, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Having reviewed the materials, staff report, as well as written materials, as well as my site visit and review of the site context, I'm satisfied that the requested variances conform to the test. I think that the location of the sunroom is centralized within the rear yard, and the sunroom itself has fairly significant setbacks from the east and west, east and west property lines, from the side property lines, and that the closest side yard being the east side yard has the lower deck on it, so the deck will provide very little opportunities for overlook. I think that any mitigative screening between the sunroom and the side yards would be relatively ineffective and would actually have to be taller than the fence and may run afoul of any fencing requirements in order to provide effective screening. But the reality is that with the centralized location of the sunroom, I don't see too much opportunity for impact on the adjacent property owners, and I believe there's the trail to the rear, so the rear yard impacts will be minimal. I think that there is still a fairly significant component of rear yard available, so there's no loss of outdoor amenity space that's unprogrammed on deck or in sunroom. So I don't see that as a concern. So I really think that the potential for impacts are relatively minimal. So that's the basis in which I'll put forward a motion of approval. And that motion should be subject to two standard conditions. The first being that the proposed sunroom and deck additions be constructed in general accordance with the site plan and elevation drawings dated August 20th, 2019, and that the variance would expire within 2 years of the date of the decision if a permit has not been issued with respect to this matter. And I would note that there are also no residents out who spoke to this specifically and raised concerns with respect to these matters.
Very well. Thank you, Mr. Hardcastle. Is there discussion on this recommendation? Go ahead, Mr. Talowski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I'm going to support my colleague's motion. I'd just like to add to that, there is no variance in front of us that's dealing with height. There is a deck adjacent to the sunroom that's at the same height, so the overlook condition that would come from the deck is permitted by the bylaw. And we're not adding a addition to the house here. We're adding, effectively putting an unheated sunroom on top of that deck that is permitted. And I would also agree that I don't think the committee needs to impose any screening restrictions in light of the fact that there is nobody here looking for such.
Very well. Thank you for those comments. Anything further? Go ahead, Mr. Flemington.
Just to add further, I am in support of the motion that the application be approved as applied for. I just noted that there were also no written objections to this application either. So I just wanted that noted.
Very well. Thank you. Anything further? Okay. All right, so the motion before us is to approve the application as submitted with the standard condition and the general accordance with the site plan and elevations. All those in support of that recommendation? Okay, your application has been approved. Sorry, those opposed? Apologize.
Thank you, Mr.
Your application has been approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have minutes to confirm? Yes?
Yes, December 17th.
Okay, we have minutes to confirm for December the 17th. Mr. Flemington, okay. You will abstain, yeah, because you weren't here. And then motion to adjourn, Mr. Hardcastle.
Sorry, who did the minutes?
Mr. Flemington.